Good afternoon, Pascal. Okay, our team and myself are very happy to meet you, Pascal, as ecologist. And then you have worked on termite mound in Cambodia for many months and many years in Cambodia. So we are very glad to meet you here in SIEM REAP again.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And my first question is a very simple question. Why you have been interested in termite mound research in Cambodia?
So I've worked in Southeast Asia for a long time, in Asia in fact, because I've worked also in India. And in Cambodia it's very, very surprising because you have very huge activity of termites. So usually in tropical environments you have a huge activity in soil, you have a huge activity of earthworms, and mostly it's earthworms and many other animals, but termites a little bit, but not so much. But here, because of the specific weather and maybe climate you have during the dry and rainy season, you have a huge activity of termites. And they bring a lot of soil on the surface, build what we call termite mounds, that have very, very specific properties. And when you see the landscapes, the paddy fields here, it's very surprising, but it's very, it's a striking feature of the landscapes. So that's part of the answer. I'm here because of this huge activity that you have in the landscapes.
So why you are interested in, for example, in a termite mound, for example, in termite?
Yeah.
Yeah. What for? What the interest of a termite in? I mean, in soils, in.
Yeah, there are in fact many reasons. The first is because I'm a soil ecologist, so I'm working on the properties of soil, so the impact of biodiversity, so termites on soil. And if you compare the soil from the termite mounds to the surrounding soil, the soil a little bit further in the paddy field, for example, or elsewhere, you will see that the soil properties are very, very different. They are usually enriched, they have more clay content, so the properties are very different. And then this explains why traditional practice is based on Khmer, but not only in Cambodia, in fact, also in northeast
in Asian countries,
in northeast Thailand, where the climate is a bit similar, in part of the Laos, where the climate is also and the soil properties are also very similar. And in that case, you find the same structure and the same activity of termites. And the farmers, traditionally, they use that soil from the termite mound because they know that the soil has better properties, and they use it to improve the fertility of their land. That's something that's traditional, but things are changing, and they are less and less used because the farmers, they are more and more using mechanization.
I mean, Cambodian farmers less use termite mound, or maybe there are less and less termite mound in Cambodia, for example?
Probably both, and both are linked. Probably that it probably also depends on the situation. Here you have a much more termite mounds in the paddy field than, for example, in Shrebak, in Kampung Chanang, where I'm working. And if you go to Kampot, you'll find a lot also. So it depends on the situation. If you go to Battambang, you won't see any. So it depends on the localization, it depends on maybe the history, if the farmers have decided to get more space for growing vegetables or rice, then they get rid of the mounds and they use the land for growing plants. But
according to your observation, so yeah. Which province, I mean which Cambodian province that have a lot of termite mound, for example, you mentioned already just now, maybe in Kampung Chanang or maybe in Kampot, beside these two provinces?
So according to my observation, but this has to be confirmed, but I'm here also for this reason, here in SIEM REAP. It's because we came here some months ago and we saw a lot of termite constructions. And also in Kulen, in Mount Kulen, it's supposed to be a place where farmers are still having this traditional practice. They are still using, in a sustainable way, the termite mounds for improving their land. So I'm here for this, in a way to compare also the situation and to see why some farmers prefer to keep these hotspots of fertility, But it's not only fertility, it's also biodiversity, because you find a lot of plants that have disappeared elsewhere, many animals also, and plants that are used, consumed, or used as medicinal plants. So these termites, so to answer to your first question, in fact, these termites, they are very interesting because of the impact they have on soil, but not only for that, because they provide many services, what we call ecosystem services, to the population. So they have access to the medicinal plants, some plants to eat, some animals that can consume, and of course the soil, and that is good for improving the fertility of their land. But it's also shade, it's many other services.
So according to your observation, allow me to ask you again, there are a lot of termite mounds in Cambodia, or maybe there are not many?
No, there are still a lot. Much more than, for example, in Northeast Thailand, where I work also. But in Northeast Thailand, probably that in the past they had a situation similar to the one we have today in Cambodia, but because of maybe the access to the market, to maybe their access to the chemicals, and then they have developed another kind of development. And then the services provided by nature, what we call the the nature-based solutions. These nature-based solutions, in fact, were useless in Cambodia, in Thailand, and then they get rid, they destroy all these mounds. But the problem we have is that maybe we don't know exactly the time needed for these termites to build again that mounds with a specific vegetation and so on. And if we compare the situation with the one we observe in America or in Africa, we need centuries to several thousand of years
to build the mound.
So if it's destroyed, it's probably destroyed forever. So that's why we are here also to understand with the farmers their use, what they do, what they think, their perception, and also to measure with specific some analysis on the soil properties and so on, to measure these impacts before it's too late and before it's
so Cambodian farmers still use a lot of termite mound to improve land quality, soil quality in Cambodia, or maybe they don't know well and maybe they destroy all termite mound and they replace by using, for example, a chemical fertilizer?
I think it's a site-specific answer, and probably that the situation we have here in SIEM REAP is very different than the one we have in Kampong. But what I can tell you is that we organized a workshop with the farmers in May, so several weeks ago. And
in Kampong Chhnang?
In Kampong Chhnang.
Yes.
And the farmers were very interested, very eager to communicate their skill, to explain their feeling, their perception. Not only about the fertility management, but also the fact that they have access to many plants that are consumed. Or maybe other aspects of, for example, the shade. Because when it's during the dry season, when the sun is very strong, it's too hot, the only place where you find shade in the paddy field, in the countryside, or in a paddy field, it's only the termite construction, in termite mounds, because they are covered by trees. So for all of these reasons, there is an interest, and the farmers, they are very interested. So they know a lot, but unfortunately, even if they know the beneficial impact that termites can have on soil properties, even with this knowledge, they have to face another reality, which is not us as a scientist. The fact is that they need laborers. They are today more dependent from chemicals. So the situation has changed, and even if they understand, they know the positive impact of these structures, their reality is often telling them that it's better to destroy the mound.
Sorry to clarify with you, maybe I do not understand well. For example, a Cambodian farmer or maybe farmer, they destroy termite mound, and then they use, the dirt mound to improve soil quality for their farming, or they need to keep termite mound to, to improve the soil quality. Sorry to clarify.
Yeah, sure. The traditional approach is to not destroy totally the mound. It's to cut, like to carve. So you have a big amount of soil, and the farmers, they They cut part of it.
Okay.
Because the mound is growing, not slowly, of course. It's a slow process. But the mound is growing, and then they destroy. They cut the mound, and they use part of it, but without killing the colonies, without killing the termites.
Oh.
And they use the soil, and they do that maybe every 2-3 years. So it's a sustainable. Traditionally, it was something like sustainable, because they
but
use.
If they cut just a little bit, I mean, some part of the termite mound, just a little bit. So how can you improve? I mean, the rye field soil quality, for example, just a little bit.
Yes, because the soils here are most of the time they are very, very sandy, so they have very poor properties in terms of water retention, for example, or in terms of chemical fertility. So that's why farmers apply a lot of chemicals, because they need to improve the amount of potassium, of phosphate, and nitrogen, all these elements that are crucial and very important for rice. Because of this low soil fertility, if you apply a soil which is, even if it's a low amount of soil, if you apply a soil which has better properties, let's say better properties, then and it's not like the nutrients, the chemical nutrients. If it's raining, they will wash away. They won't be retained in soil. You won't keep them in the soil. While if it's soil, the decomposition, the availability of the nutrients will be slower, and it will be more sustainable. So you don't need to apply every year and a lot. You improve by adding just a little amount. You improve for the long time. That doesn't mean that you become independent from the chemicals, but you become less dependent from them.
So you said just now that you discussed with a farmer in Cambodia, maybe Kampong Chnang, recently, a few weeks ago. So they still want to use, termite mound to improve their land quality, their soil quality?
No, in Kampong Chnang the situation is a bit different. They are facing, the economy is very difficult. And in addition, they have no access to manpower. In addition, they are in a process of simplification of the system. So they prefer to sell sometimes the old amount, so in that case it's totally lost, to, for example, people growing vegetables in other area. So sometimes you have a transfer of soil from one place to another, and then the termite mounds, they are destroyed. And the farmer, even if they know that it's good, they are in this dynamics of, in fact, it's a negative dynamics. And they lose this natural fertility that is coming from the activity of termites and plants. It's not only termites. And for something that is not sustainable. And they sell, they earn a bit of money, but it's not sustainable, because when it's lost. And it's people who are doing vegetable gardening in other cities or provinces who take the soil and use this soil.
Just now you said that, for example, the termite mound can be used as a traditional medicine. What do you mean that?
There are many plants, but don't ask me the name. But we have in our team someone who are, several people interested by this diversity of plants that you can find on termite mounds. And you know that it's not only on termite mounds, but you know that the Khmer cuisine and the Khmer traditional medicines are mostly based on plants. So there is a local, but also national, because everything is already recorded. So there is this knowledge, these practices that rely on the utilization of nature, of what the nature gave you. So farmers are growing, for example, most of the farmers, maybe in the place we work, it's perhaps 80% of the farmers who have a small garden, and they grow their own vegetables. But in addition, they can go, the forest has disappeared, so the only place where you can find other plants, other vegetables, exactly.
On termite mound.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So
that's what we suspect. That's our hypothesis.
So so far, how long have you been doing, for example, your research on termite mound in Cambodia, specifically in Kampong Chnang, for example?
So it's approximately 2 years. This is my second year here in Cambodia, but I have been very lucky, and I supervised a a PhD, the PhD of a colleague here in Cambodia. Her name is Rata Moine, who's currently working with me. She's a scientist from ITC, and she did a PhD under my supervision. But again, before that, I work in Vietnam, in Thailand, and in India, and situations, even if they are different, are in a way very similar, because the environment and the termite bioturbation can be in a way comparable.
Yeah, but I mean, how many termite mounds that you have been doing your research, for example, in Cambodia so far, within 2 years?
Termite mounds? No, I don't know how many termite mounds we have studied. We have studied a lot of termites.
In Cambodia?
Yes, of course, of course. Because I'm a soil scientist, so we go in one place, we collect the soil, we analyze the soil, we compare with another situation. So we did that a lot, of course, with my colleagues from ITC and Royal University of Agronomy as well, and other colleagues from other institutions. So we did this a lot, yes.
Within 2 years, a lot.
And 2 years, and 3 years before, it was the PhD of my student. So let's say that's approximately 5 years that I'm working in Cambodia.
So following your work, I mean in Cambodia for many years already. So from day to day, Cambodian farmers still want to use a termite, termite mound as a natural fertilizer, or maybe they still want to use a chemical fertilizer because they gel a lot of product.
The situation, I think, is, again, it's different from one side to side, but where we work, the farmers are mostly using chemical fertilizers. We did with our colleagues from AgriSud, they did a survey and they analyzed and they arrived to the conclusion that approximately 40% of the budget is spent in the production system is for chemical fertilizers, is for purchasing chemical fertilizer. So it's a huge amount of money, in a way energy, spent in these elements. So if we can find a and it's not sustainable because you contribute to the pollution of the environment. So if we can find a solution, a natural-based solution, that would be the best. But this cannot be found without this communication with the farmer and this knowledge that is shared, because they have a lot of knowledge of the situation and they are the one in contact. Nobody else knows better than them the situation. So we are in contact with them. We started to be in contact with them, and then to have this feedback, and the next step is in fact with the knowledge we'll gain from our results is to come back to the farmers and to try to find a win-win situation where biodiversity can be restored, preserved, and the livelihood of the farmers can be improved.
So another question, for example, I heard about the compost. Compost is something which has been produced by in a natural way as well. So compost and termite mound. So which one is the best, for example? Not talking about the chemical fertilizers.
It depends on the situation. If you are working in, for example, vegetable gardening, if you are growing vegetables and you need to have organic matter in your soil, in that case, compost or other kind of organic material. For example, it can be the litter in the forest. It can be many things, or it can be the manure. It can be many things. Any input of organic matter will be, in general, beneficial to your soil system. But if you are in an environment like paddy field, where the soils are, most part of the time, at least when it's cultivated, under the water, in that case, I don't know, I don't want to guarantee that the situation is like that here, but our work in Vietnam shows that 20 years of incorporation of organic matter didn't improve the carbon content in the soil. So it's not because you apply compost, manure, whatever, in the paddy field that you will improve the carbon content in the paddy field. But that doesn't mean that you don't apply other elements that are also very important for plants. Potassium, for example, silicon. There are many elements that are not linked or directly linked to carbon. It's not carbon in soil, but it's important element, nutrients for plants. that can be brought by this organic matter.
So following your study, following your research here in Cambodia, in Kampong Chnang, or maybe in SIEM REAP, so you want to see termite mound keeping alive for many many other years in Cambodia, and we will be used by Cambodian farmer, if I'm not wrong, maybe your idea.
I've been, maybe I can tell you a bit of my experience, but not in Cambodia, in India. In India, you have sometimes this, this experience of talking with farmers, people who feel very close, who feel this very close relationship with nature, and who try to find a way, maybe to share elements, space, whatever, to share the things with nature. And it makes very beautiful stories. And for example, agroforestry. It's possible to visit some incredible places in India where people have developed some system, very complex systems, where each element, you have biodiversity in your system. So of course it's not intensive system, but you have a lot of different kind of plants, services, you have the water that is purified. This complexity is very, very interesting. And I would like, if I have a dream to do, is perhaps that here people, but I mean, it's not only in Cambodia, it's everywhere in the world, that people understand that the nature is complexity, and that our systems are not only one, they don't provide only one service. They are multifunctional. That means that they are useful, important for preserving water, the water quality in your soil, the water quality, the carbon in your soil. They are important for providing the plants you will eat, you will consume when you're sick, or to avoid to be sick, for example. And it's the systems, they are multifunctional, they have to provide many services. And it's only when we understand or accept that perhaps we have to produce less but better, that the system, I hope, will be more sustainable.
Maybe the last question with you, Pascal. I have heard you talking about the interest of a termite mound or something like that for the quality of soil, for the nature. But just the last question for you is that termite in house, they destroy house. So maybe they are different type, or just the last question with you?
Yeah. No, that's I fully agree. Of course. So this is the yin and the yang. So when something is positive, on the other side you have something negative. So it's the same. So when you are in a natural environment, you have a balance. And these termites that are feeding on the soil, usually it's, sorry, not the soil, the plants. When they feed on the plant, it's dead plants. It's plant that is already in a process of decomposition. So they are very useful because they participate to these dynamics of recycling, and they provide the nutrients available to the plants. But this is in a natural system. If you go in a system where there is only one plant, sugarcane, for example, maize. So in that case, if the plant is a bit weak, because you have other predators, because you have a drought sometimes, mismanagement of nutrients or whatever. In that case, the positive and beneficial impact of anything, here termites, but it can be anything, then it becomes negative. And then they can attack the plants. And it's the same in a city. The termites, they are not born to be in a city. They are like in a zoo, you know. So in that case, it's true that they can have huge impact on the construction. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your very informative explanation, Pascal. Very interesting for Cambodian audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you
so much.